GamesCom 2010.
Make sure you stop downstairs. Like I was telling these guys, check out our theater down there. We have some new content from the WMD mission. It takes place in Russia, up in the Ural Mountains. So it's really cool stuff. What we showed you behind closed doors there, the new stuff, of course, is Victor Charlie. That's never been seen before. We haven't shown that yet. So you know, those missions took place in Vietnam and Southeast Asia. You know, that is a conflict that's covered in Black Ops, but it's not, you know, the conflict. It's not just Vietnam. We actually we've crafted a very deep and rich story. With Black Ops, it's an original story that we've created at Treyarch. We're not making a game to tell the history. We're not telling the Cold War. We're telling our story, and it weaves its way through the Cold War and points in history to use as sort of a backdrop. That's sort of the broad strokes of Black Ops. I'd love to answer some of your questions if you have some more specifically. It's probably a better use of the time.
Yeah, I have one, if I may say so.
Yeah.
Okay. I saw a lot of variation. You have swimming levels now. You can cut a throat with a knife. You can steer a helicopter. Do you have a lot more things that you would put in the game?
Yeah, that's actually a philosophy that we have at Treyarch. Is like every level needs to have something that's memorable, like a moment that's going to stick out. So when you're talking about the game with your friends, you know, who knows? Maybe you latch on to the swimming sequence. Maybe that's what really stuck out to you in Victor Charlie, or maybe it's the meat shield sequence or the bullet time. You know, so there's all sorts of cinematic, intense moments that are interspersed throughout the game, and that's part of the design cycle.
Okay.
So, you want to discuss? Okay. So, you're obviously putting a multiplayer in it.
Oh, of course.
Obviously. What have you changed of that?
Yeah, research showed us that multiplayer is really popular, so we're not going to multiplayer.
Okay, it's funny, but are there big things that you're going to change about the multiplayer?
Yeah, so there's some core changes to it. We just released our teaser trailer. We're not ready to do a full MP reveal just yet. We're going to do that right at the beginning of September, so you want to keep your eye out for that. But what I can tell you is that we put a strong focus on player customization and personalization, and also like socialization. So you know, our core, we especially the shooter player, they want to be able to create their own online identity. They want to create this persona that people can identify with, whether it's leaderboards or whatnot. I mean, they're just naturally they're competitive type of people, so they want to create their own sort of and play the game the way they want to play it. So we're going to give them the necessary tools and resources to do that. Create a class and with matchmaking and all that stuff.
But not big gameplay changes.
Well, so the core gameplay, there's definitely there's a recipe to Call of Duty that we don't want to mess with. Every Call of Duty game sort of grown and evolved off of what the previous one implemented. So yeah, it's definitely an evolution in that sense. But there are a lot of things that have been changed and tweaked. We listen to the community. We go directly to them for feedback on every single Call of Duty game that's been in the franchise. So we get whether it's a perk that somebody didn't like and they want that removed or tweaked, or whether it's a weapon class that they didn't like and they want to see that change. All of that factors into the game, especially in multiplayer.
Okay.
We have seen before the demo and look a helicopter.
Yes.
We have seen the motion capture made for Call of Duty Ops.
Yep.
And there are something in the game where the motion capture were utilized.
You want to talk about the full performance capture?
Yes.
Just
another motion capture utilized in the game.
Yeah. Well, so in the helicopter level in Payback you were talking about, I think you were you saw Woods at the beginning. He turns back and looks at your player and he says, see that hind? We're going to take it. And you can see that emotion and the intensity in his face, and that's accomplished because we have a technology called tension mapping. So we can actually map the face out, and we model the characters with a default face and an expressionless face. But then, as their muscles in their face, we recreate bone structure in a virtual sense. And so if the character is supposed to be raising his eyebrows in surprise, or he's supposed to be squinting in anger, or gritting his teeth, all of that will come through through this tension mapping. And then we couple that with a technique called full performance capture. So that's where you capture the face, the body, and the voice all in one take, all in one session. So it really allows the actor to put a little bit of himself into the character, and that's really what ratchets that bar up and that performance up to a whole new level that you haven't seen before in Call of Duty. So that's sort of what you were seeing in the game, and Victor Charlie was a really good example of that as well. There was a lot of those little one-on-one dialogue sequences. His Bowman was talking to Woods, and they were both talking to Mason, who's your character. So yeah, I mean, all that stuff and all those gestures and motions, that's all made possible with full performance capture. And that's actually what James Cameron used in the creation of Avatar, which of course looked so, that was the hit blockbuster, of course, last year, and it looked so realistic, and even though that was animated characters, it's still, because that technology is so new, it's really the first time we've been able to put that in a shooter.
Thank you.
Does the game have multiple storylines, and how long does it take to complete the game? It's a single player.
Yeah. The game's not completely done yet, so we're not sure just how long it's going to be. It'll be long enough to tell the story the right way, so we're completely invested in making a really compelling, gripping, complex narrative. We don't want to cross the boundary, though, into confusing. We don't want to make a story that's so complicated that it's just, creates confusion and plot holes, so we're not going to go that far. But it'll make sense, it'll be fun, and yes, you'll be playing from a few different perspectives in the game. There will be multiple threads to the story, but it's all going to come back and tie together to a single, plot, which is going to be told very, very, very well. I mean, if we do our job right, it'll be a very, very good story with great character development and immersion and story arc and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, well, I have another question for you. It's actually a business-oriented question. There have been some troubles between your publisher and the other big developer from Call of Duty. Are you guys now the biggest Call of Duty developer, or will we see a decrease in Call of Duties in the coming years?
I'm not sure how big Infinity Ward is. I know that Treyarch has 250-ish developers in-house right now working on the game. We, from the start of this project, we really wanted to focus and commit ourselves to making the biggest, baddest, best Call of Duty we've ever made. So, during 2008, when we made World at War, we actually shipped 3 blockbuster titles that year. We shipped James Bond Quantum of Solace, we shipped Spider-Man World of Shadows, and Call of Duty World at War. Yeah. Right after those shipped, we refocused every single developer that worked exclusively on Call of Duty. So now, instead of having 3 games coming out this year, we have 1 game that has like 3 components in it. It's like 3 games in one box, because we have our single player, which has its own dedicated team, multiplayer, which has its own dedicated team, and then co-op. And dedicated team for that as well. So World at War, for example, multiplayer, we didn't start working on that until about 8 months out from shipping the game. We made single player first, then we went to multiplayer. Yeah. So now it's had a dedicated team, the same size as the single player team since day one, and they've been building those 2 things in parallel. So if you thought multiplayer and the single player was good and fun in Call of Duty World at War, I mean, I guess the message here is just about how much better it can be with Black Ops, considering that we have all that extra resources.
What you're saying here is that Call of Duty Black Ops is like 3 times better than...
At least, yes.
So I've got another question. We've seen the demo yet.
Yes.
Yeah. And it seemed to be more about the tactics.
Yeah.
So, are you focusing more on tactics, like sneaking around and that stuff?
Yeah, I mean that's the kind of stuff we wanted to show in the demo, just to give you an idea for the kind of variety we can go for and that we are going for. It's not going to be like you wouldn't call Call of Duty Black Ops a tactical shooter. It's not that. Clearly, you saw all of those sequences eventually exploded out into that same cinematic intensity that you expected. Yeah. But yes, pacing is really important to making a good game, and it's important that you're not having non-stop white-knuckle action the entire way through, because you're just going to be exhausted at the end of that game. So it has to be paced correctly with the right story elements and storytelling to keep the players going from high to low and high to low, how low is Mr. Guy.
Another question. Call of Duty Black Ops will support PlayStation Move
No,
in the
no,
future?
it will not. It will not. Black Ops does not feature move or connect. It's well, we don't really put a focus on 3D. I think on a lot of those like goggles, they'll just work if you have a 3D monitor, 3D goggles. But all those technologies came on sort of after we were already in production with Black Ops. So anytime that we start a project, we'll look at any sort of technology that's out there in the space right now, what would make sense for a Call of Duty game. So I can't promise that we will or won't have move or connect in the future with a Call of Duty down the road, but it's possible. It would have to make sense. We wouldn't just put it in just to say we have it. We would have to make sure that there was compelling gameplay around it.
Okay.
You mentioned just a bit ago about co-op. Is co-op only in single player or is it different mode like Spec Ops?
Actually, yeah. So it's not really either. It's not single player. So you can't play the campaign cooperatively. We did that in World at War. So I mean, we showed we can. It was just a conscious design decision. We wanted to make a really great story that was awesome to experience from one perspective. So once you play through, I don't want to spoil it. Once you play the game, you'll understand why it wouldn't work with co-op. So yeah, the co-op is a standalone, unique mode. Kind of like Spec Ops, but kind of not. So I'll just leave it at that. I think it's going to be a fan favorite.
With Nazi Zombies.
4 players online, 2 players local split screen, and we'll reveal it later in the year.
Okay.
With Nazi zombies?
Nazi Zombies was 2 years ago. Come on.
Yeah, but it was nice.
We'd have to whatever we do, we'd have to ratchet that bar up, right?
Okay, well I have another question. There are a lot of problems now online with cheaters. Guys have God mode and all that stuff. You're gonna be, going against that? Yeah, fighting that?
Fighting the good fight, yeah. So, I mean, to be fair, like all of those hacks and mods, that just sort of surfaced over the last year or two. That's where they really got popular. So, of course, with a franchise like Call of Duty, whatever game was hot at that time is going to get hacked and modded. We have the added advantage of having all of those behind us, right? So we were able to, we read about them, we know how they're accomplished. Basically, they mod their console and they can get access to system level variables that we didn't anticipate them having access to.
Yeah.
It's boring techno speak, but the point is, yes, we've been able to build in preventative measures into Black Ops that's going to come out of the box, so those things won't work for that. And then anytime that, hackers, they're very, intuitive, they can find new ways to, I'm sure, break the game. So, but when they do, we have also added security into the game where we can enforce our policies and moderate those leaderboards in those lobbies. So it shouldn't be as big an issue.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. Thank you.
On Call of Duty Black Ops, was the first time that Treyarch developed a title based on a different ambient than World War.
World War II. Yeah. It's well, so it is the first game.
What's the inspiration about the new way of Call of Duty Ops by Treyarch?
I think that I'm not going to say that World War II is like done and that there can't be any World War II game ever again. But any time that we look at a game that we want to make or a time period we want to cover, we need to pick material that's going to be fresh and new to the players. And the Call of Duty franchise is such a long one with a lot of great games. It's done World War II. It's done the modern thing. We wanted to pick a genre that hasn't been